Okay, before we begin our class discussion for this meeting, let's start our day with the prayer. I want Kelly to lead the prayer. Friends,
Okay, sir.
lead us in prayer.
Let's pray. Lord, please guide us in our Zoom meeting today, and please give us wisdom to um, understand quickly the lesson for today. Amen.
Okay. Mm. So welcome to our official class, Quantitative Research, Practical Research 2. So I know you're already aware about what is quantitative because we have a brief discussion with regard to this subject last semester.
Sir, di ba mag-open mag-cam? Naligaw ka
Yeah,
naka-open mag-cam dira.
open your camera, guys. I want to see your faces.
Gusto rin dyan mo makita si Jilam.
Di man good, kaya na picture ba? Sa lig, naka-off ang cam.
Okay. Welcome to Quantitative Research. Okay, have you experienced this kind of scenario?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Only one member who
Yes,
carried all the
Yes,
burden.
yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Si Kelly, di mo tabang.
Oh.
Anong ni Yes man ka Angelo na kagrupo man Kelly?
Ako rin nagliyok sa mga, sir.
Kahawd ba? Okay? Wait lang. So this is quantitative research. Last semester, we had qualitative research. It's the concepts, the terminologies are the same, but we have different methodology and other processes when it comes to conducting quantitative research. Okay. Okay, definitions of research. It is a term used liberally for any kind of investigation that is intended to uncover interesting or new facts. Okay, for you, John, what is your understanding about this definition of research? It is a term used liberally for any kind of investigation that is intended to uncover interesting or new facts. John.
Ay, ako dahil.
Mm-mm.
It's reggae music.
I think everyone has. Hello?
Hey, John, okay, go.
I think everyone has the free will to ano sir to to initiate or do a research pero kailangan lang og guidance from from professionals sir and para discover of new knowledge about a certain things or problems.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, based on this definition, research means it is going to investigate phenomenon in order to understand and explain them using the right procedures or methods. So through research, we can generate new facts, new knowledge by conducting in a right procedure, in appropriate manner. Right. It involves finding out about things that no one else knew either. It is about advancing the frontiers of knowledge. It involves finding out about things that no one else knew either. It is about advancing the frontiers of knowledge. It means that when we say frontiers of knowledge, it's about synthesizing the most essential aspects that we know and what we aspire to know in the future. It's also generating an advance or new knowledge about your expertise of this specific field. It is about acquiring knowledge and developing understanding, collecting facts, and interpreting them to build up a picture of the world around us and even within us. So, through research, we will be able to explain the entities which compose the world that we live in, even the internal things that make us a human being. The research is required in order to explain a phenomenon or to test a theory. A research can be employed in order to explain or examine events or challenge existing theories or beliefs. Okay, that's why, if you can still remember, theories that are over 10 years are actually, what do you call that, are invalid anymore. If there are already existing theories that can be used for the recent context. But there are also theories, even if they are 50 years ago, that can still be used if there are no other theories that can explain a phenomenon. Okay, our objectives for this lesson: at the end of the lesson, the students can define quantitative research, describe the characteristics of quantitative research, identify the advantages and disadvantages of quantitative research, and value the importance of quantitative research. Okay, so definitions of quantitative research. Quantitative research is explaining phenomena by collecting numerical data that are analyzed using mathematically based methods, in particular statistics, according to Aliaga and Gunderson 2000. Right? So quantitative research basically deals with numbers and statistics. We're going to quantify the data being gathered by the researchers. Quantitative research, also known as empirical research, is a type of inquiry where relations are established through the collection of numerical data which are analyzed to derive generalization. So when we say empirical, it means that quantitative research should be verified, meaning it will undergo a scientific process in order to verify the truthfulness of the research. So quantitative research can also establish relationships between or among variables. So if there's significant relationship between or among these variables. Quantitative research may be defined as the systematic empirical investigation of social phenomena using tools of mathematics and statistics. So it means that there's a methodological way of investigation using a statistical treatment or statistical tools that is appropriate to use for a study. So quantitative research is not just for science and mathematics, but it can also be used in social sciences. The term quantitative emphasizes that this type of research involves quantification or measurement and usually involves numbers. So in quantitative study, you're going to measure your data. That's why you need to have an instrument that can generate statistical data or numbers that can be derived from the responses of your respondents. The term empirical means that this type of research is concerned with things or characteristics that are observable. So when we say empirical, it's scientific. It can be observed through our senses, meaning quantitative research should be seen, should be observed. There's a manifestation. The term social phenomena emphasizes that it is concerned with people, their communities, their organizations, and even their behavior. So in quantitative research, we can also measure the behavior, the personality, the attitude of people. For example, are you familiar with Myers-Briggs personality test?
Yes, sir.
Mm. Um, the personality traits using the ocean method. Mm. These methods are using statistics or numbers in order to identify or determine the personalities of people. Okay. In studying a phenomenon, quantitative researchers attempt to measure relevant factors and variables by attaching numeric values that express quantity. Analyzing numbers to answer a scientific inquiry is done through mathematical formulas usually used in descriptive and inferential statistics. Okay, there are factors involved in research and they are called as variables. So you're going to quantify those variables in order to formulate generalizations and conclusions and method to employ in conducting quantitative study. And it involves laborious testings and observations. That's why it is scientific. Quantitative research is traditional, positivist, positivist scientific method, which refers to a general set of orderly, disciplined procedures to acquire information. It utilizes deductive reasoning to generate predictions that are tested in the real world. So which means that it was widely used in different disciplines, itong quantitative research. So compared with qualitative research, quantitative research has a very tedious methodological way of conducting the research because you need to consider external factors which can affect the process of collecting the data. So you need to be careful because your process can affect the quality of the data that you will gather in conducting quantitative research. It is deductive since you're going to formulate conclusions at the end of the process of conducting the research. You need to formulate questions first, hypothesis, then you collect information, you analyze the information, and then by that, you can formulate generalizations or conclusions. Most quantitative researchers subscribe to a philosophy called positivism. In positivism, authoritative knowledge is believed to come from empirical observation and the use of logic. Can you say positivism in the context of philosophy? It needs the logical and the soundness of the reasoning. Meaning positivism, because you need to verify the realness and the genuineness or truthfulness of your observation that can be done through analysis and evaluation of quantifiable data. Okay, how quantitative research works. So there are three main factors in terms of conducting quantitative research studies. First is observing and explaining an occurrence, collecting information, and analyzing the information. Okay, when we say observing and explaining an occurrence, it involves asking questions, creating hypotheses. So when you observe something in your community or wherever you are, you formulate questions, hypotheses, if your observations can be accepted or not. So after formulating questions, hypotheses, you need to collect information. And in quantitative research, the kind of information that you need to collect are numerical data or statistical information. And it can be done through manual collection or automated collection. When we say manual collection, it's the traditional method of collecting the data. It's like you're going to conduct a survey by distributing the survey forms, the physical paper to your respondents, or you conduct interview face-to-face. When we say automated collection, it is generated through technology, just like Google Forms. That's one way to collect information from the respondents by using technology, by using computer and internet. And after collecting information, after collecting information, you're going to analyze the information using mathematical analysis. It can be done through a statistical treatment. So you cannot analyze the information that you have gathered without using a statistical treatment. Yes, Angelo, why are you raising your hand?
Sir, excuse me lang, sir. Matos mo, hawas ako dali, sir, kay mo adto ko sa pikas balay kay ilak na ako, sir. Nadala lang ako, sir.
Right, so in quantitative research, you need to observe or explain the phenomenon, and then you ask question, you formulate hypothesis, then you collect information, and after collecting information, you need to analyze the information. Characteristics of quantitative research. It is reliable and objective. Since we are dealing with numbers, we're dealing with statistics, we can objectivize quantitative research since it deals with number. It uses the statistics to generalize a finding. So you cannot analyze, you cannot generate conclusion or generalization if there's no statistics in quantitative research. It reduces and restructures a complex problem to a limited number of variables. So you will understand in scope and delimitation and I forgot the concept. No, it's not conceptual framework. It's yeah, it's in conceptual framework because you can limit the factors that you're going to consider in studying using quantitative research. It looks at the connections between variables and establishes cause and effect relationships in highly controlled circumstances. So this is the advantage of quantitative research because you can limit the variables or the factors that you're going to study, and then you can establish if there's connection or relationship between the variables that you are dealing with in your quantitative research. It tests theories and hypotheses. As what I have said, using quantitative research, we can challenge already existing theories and hypotheses. It assumes that the sample is representative of the population. So even if you're not going to survey the whole population of your respondents, but the samples from those population is already enough in order to formulate conclusion or generalization. So for example, when you survey and your respondents are computer gamers in Davao City, it's not necessary to survey all of the computer gamers in Davao City. You just have to collect samples from that population. The subjectivity of its methodology is a secondary concern. Since we can objectivize quantitative research, subjectivity is not that really a concern. It's because of the objectivity of quantitative research, since we are dealing with numbers and statistics. It deals with the detail of the subject. So since quantitative research is limited in terms of the variables that you're going to study, meaning you can provide specific and thorough details of the subjects that you're going to deal with in your quantitative research. The advantages. It allows the researcher to measure and analyze the data to arrive at an objective answer to the problem posed or stated. Since it's a survey, it deals with number. So whatever the result in your analysis, you cannot do anything about it. That's the result. You cannot form subjective analysis of the result of the study, since you measured, you analyzed using a statistical treatment. The results are reliable since the study uses a big sample of the problem of the population. So there's a method of determining the specific size of the samples that you need to consider in your quantitative research, depending on the number of population of your respondents. And the number of samples that you can generate from the population is reliable. And since it is reliable, you can generate reliable facts, reliable data from your respondents. Standards are usually used in choosing the instruments, in sampling procedures, and in choosing the most appropriate statistical treatment, thus making the research replicable. Meaning, when you say replicable, can be standardized. can be used in other contexts or can be used for another research. So in methodology, in quantitative research, there's a laborious and tedious process of choosing the right instrument. Since your instrument should measure or should collect the appropriate data that will be needed for your research. The sampling procedures, the specific number of samples that you need to consider, and the appropriate statistical treatment. So if you're conducting descriptive research, there's appropriate statistical treatment for that kind of research. There is also an appropriate statistical treatment when you conduct descriptive correlational. So we will learn that on the following lessons. Personal biases can be avoided since personal interaction is not part of the research process. So when you did a manual collection, during the interaction between the researcher and respondents cannot affect since personal biases can be avoided. Kasi yun lang yung sasagutin ng respondents based on your research instrument. Your respondents will only answer based on the questions provided in the research instrument. Unlike in qualitative research, diba, you interviewed process involved are simplified since the steps in doing quantitative research are made easy and systematic. Okay. When you conduct your research, when you survey your research respondents, when you give them the research instrument it's easy to generate the analysis since you're having the data The laborious part in quantitative research is to identify and determine what's the appropriate methodology. Results can be reduced through statistical treatments and interpreted in a few statements. So it means that the analysis that you're going to provide in your research is based on the result of your statistical analysis using statistical treatment. In data collection using quantitative design is relatively faster and easier to do. Kasi you can do automated collection Meaning you can send the link by using Google Forms. You can send the link to your respondents and they will just answer. Data analysis is done through statistical software, which is proven more effective in validating constructed hypotheses and theories. So this is the advantage of quantitative research. You will just give your data to your statistician, and then your statistician will just encode the data, and the statistical software will generate the results Okay, disadvantages of quantitative. The context of the study or the experiment is ignored in such a way that it does not consider the natural setting where the study is conducted. So since quantitative research, you're only going to deal with your research variables, not the other factors. For example, when you want to conduct a study entitled, or if your study involves the levels of speech anxiety and the academic performance, if you want to determine if there's relationship between the levels of anxiety and academic performance, if your levels of anxiety can affect your academics. So other factors such as the the competence of teachers, the background, the socioeconomic background of the students, the psychological or mental situation of the students can be eradicated or cannot be considered since you're only dealing with levels of speech anxiety and academic performance. So, limited itong quantitative research. Having a large study sample requires researchers to spend more resources. So, if your respondents are large in population, meaning you are required to have a larger sample if the population is large. And it requires you to spend more money. Quantitative research is costly. Results are limited since they are usually based on the analysis of numbers and are not obtained from detailed narratives. So you cannot provide subjective analysis, even if the subjective analysis is logical or rational. Since you're only going to consider the analysis that is generated from the statistical treatment. It provides less elaborate accounts of human perceptions. So the opinions and perceptions of your respondents are not included. Their answers to the survey instrument or research instrument are the ones being considered only, not their opinions. In experimental research, the level of control might not be normally placed in the real world because it is actually done in a laboratory. Okay. This involves in scientific research wherein, like for example, uh, you are conducting a research in a science laboratory. So, yung mga, what do you call that? When you, mga animal, sa, mga animal research studies, like for example, if there's a disease or illness, then scientists wanted to discover cure or vaccine for that disease. Usually, it's because it's not ethical to conduct scientific investigation using human body. It's not ethical anymore. Instead of using human bodies, they use animals na lang. So there's no guarantee if the effect in the animals is the same in human trials. Ana. Preset or fixed alternative answers may not necessarily reflect the true answers of the participants. So this is one of the disadvantages in quantitative research wherein the respondents will just answer without minding anymore. Like, for example, ay, 5 na akong answer, ani. Ay, 4 na akong answer, ani. Akong i-rate, ani. So that's the disadvantage of quantitative research. Your respondents will deliberately answer without minding the content of the questions in the research instrument. Like, although conscious sila about the genuineness of the data that should be gathered from out of that survey. But the thing is, sila magpataka lang sila answer. This in mind, kay Kapoy mag-answer. Findings can be influenced by the researcher's perspective since most of the time the participants are unknown to him or her. So, meaning kasi we can generate conclusion in the results of the study. But the thing is, researchers can influence in terms of interpreting the data. Kasi depending on the theory that the researcher used for that specific study. So actually pag choose pa lang ng theory, it's already the bias of the researcher. The statistical aspects of a quantitative study may be too technical for average readers to comprehend. So this kind of disadvantage is on the part of the readers of the research. If the readers are not mathematically inclined or they are not expert in the field of mathematics, sometimes it's hard to understand or decode the content of a quantitative research. Kasi nga, it's mathematics, it's statistics. Results of the study may also be too limited as they only provide numeric interpretations rather than detailed narrative accounts of an individual's insights. As what I have said earlier, the opinions and the stories of the respondents are not included, cannot be used in quantitative study. Okay, quantitative research across disciplines. Okay, the use and importance of quantitative research studies in different or various fields. Okay, we have in the field of education. Okay, I want to ask Kyle, how can we use quantitative research in education, Kyle?
Hello, sir.
Yes. How can we use quantitative research study in education?
Kung sir sa education, sir, kay parehas sa katong gibuhat na mo na research, sir, kay gigamit na mo research para makabalo mi sa mga factors na nag-affect pag sa pagtuon sa mga students, sir. And one example, sir, is katong social learning theory na nagigamit na mo, sir, kay para makabalo mi sa strategies and mga factors na nag-affect sa learning sa students.
Okay, exactly. We can use, although it's a qualitative research, but we can quantify the study. And it can be used in the field of education if we want to learn new methods of teaching based on the context of the students, based on the preferred learning strategies of the students. We can formulate new teaching method out of that idea. So in education, we can also use quantitative research in assessment by assessing the academic performance of the students. So in business, how about Don? First Don. Don. Excuse me. Excuse me. Don. No response. How about Tia?
Yes, sir.
How can we use quantitative research in market research? or in business?
Ano sir, sa number ng participants?
Hmm. What's with the number of participants?
Ano, na mag-gather ang data sa yung mag-gather ang data sa tawagan na yun, nawala na akong idea sir.
Okay lang, Tia. Okay, so quantitative research can be used in market research or in the business field by conducting pilot testing. Like for example, if you want to have a new business, if you want to know if your business is profitable, then you conduct pilot testing first. You need to know if the specific business that you want to establish can be patronized by the target market, by your target market or your target consumers. So, yung mga businesses dyan, nagkakandak pa yan sila ng pilot testing if papatok yung business nila. We can also use quantitative research if you want to analyze the sales of your product, if nagtaas or nagbaba. So by that, if nagtaas, meaning your business strategies are effective. If nagbaba, meaning it's either your business strategies are not effective or you have a more competent or competitive na competitors in the business. How about in the medical and health and allied services? Carl, Louis, how can we use quantitative research in the medical field?
Carl!
Carl, Louis, where are you? Mula gina ba? Dapat mag-open og camera. Okay, Hans. Hans,
Ay, sir?
asa kagikan?
Kuwag sudan, sir.
Okay, how can we use quantitative research in the medical field?
Kasi, sir?
How can we use quantitative research in the medical field?
Pwede sila mag-survey kung sa'yo mas effective, sir, than, tawagan na.
For example, itong COVID-19 vaccine.
Ay,
Oh,
itong i-release na Sputnik daw, then, murag, pwede nila ipa-mass testing ba, then i-check ba if effective jud, if tawagan na kanang mas daghan ang mahimong immune sa virus tungod sa ginatawag nila na na cure, then ato lang, sir.
okay, thank you. Okay. For example, in the case that we're dealing with today, the pandemic, ba? And developing the vaccine for the COVID-19 disease, scientists undergo human trials in order to know if the vaccine is effective or not. And that's an example of quantitative research. scientific research. In science and technology, Justin.
Palaglag din na ron.
Paghilom da, Noel. Justin, where are you? Okay, Leslie. How about in science and technology?
Ano sir, kanang for example sir, sa technology sir, sa experiment, murag na test nila ang like for example sa laboratory, mag-test la kung pila ang kailangan na nina chemical para kung ano nila sa mga other scientists sir. Murag gina-survey nila kung sa mga opinion sir ba, kung pila kailangan nina chemical para ma-himo nina project, maginana sir.
Okay, thank you. So quantitative research can be used in science and technology when it comes to creating new technology or innovations, processing of certain device. Yun na. Other areas, household census. Okay, for example, yung sa PSA, yung Philippine Statistics Agency, the survey that they are conducting is a household census. It's a form of quantitative research. They want to identify the population of the Philippines or in one region. Market research, it's the same thing with business, information technology. You want to know for example, the usability of a certain technology to the computer illiterate. If a specific software or technology can be easily used by those people without enough background of using technology. Or if the technology is effective in terms of disseminating information. Like for example, have you tried responding to the survey of Facebook with regards to the information that we get in Facebook about the COVID-19? That's an example. And disaster management. Quantitative research can be used in disaster management when it comes to formulating new strategies on how to appropriately respond during natural disasters and calamities. So do you have questions regarding our lesson for today? Questions? I will cater questions. Sige na, guys.
Ay, sir,
Yes.
sa tanan ba sir tran quantitative study kay naka Likert scale lang karon?
I know it's not all research studies can need to use Likert scale. Okay, for example, for descriptive study, I Likert scale siya pero ang statistical treatment ang malahi di ay. Na instances na you don't need to use Likert scale. Pero usually Likert scale din ang ginagamit pag research, pag quantitative research. And different types of Likert scale. 5-point Likert scale, 7-point Likert scale, depending on the number of options that you want to consider. Ano pa? Depending on the nature of your study, if it is appropriate to use Likert scale, then use Likert scale. And if not, hindi siya. No more questions?
Answer.
Saman Kelly.
Sir, none. None.
Okay na?
Yes, sir.
Karon pa si Haya nakasulod. Okay, if you don't have questions anymore, if you have no questions anymore, I think it's a wrap. That's the end of the discussion.